Good morning, CSL.
Good morning.
In the book of Exodus 3:7-8, Jehovah, speaking from the burning bush, symbolic of the voice of light within Moses, says to Moses, I have come to bring them, Israelites, up out of the land Egypt, to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. New Thought minister and author Louise Hay wrote, the only thing we are ever dealing with is a thought, and a thought can be changed. No matter what the problem is, our experiences are just outer effects of inner thoughts. And thoughts can be changed. Change the thought, and the feeling must go. The past has no power over us. It doesn't matter how long we have had a negative pattern. The point of power is in the present moment. What a wonderful thing to realize. We can begin to be free in this moment by choosing a new thought. I invite you to join me in using the creative power of our word as we speak this new thought, this liberating affirmation. Despite the lack of evidence and seeming barrenness of what I desire, I now prepare for my expanded good. Because I prepare, I am open mentally to recognize it and accept it as it comes to me. I am grateful it is mine now. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Well, I just love how things are so synchronistic. We have been looking at the spiritual principles of prosperity in the story of Moses and the Israelites this past month, and we were going to continue to do so. And Rabbi Sherry called me and said, did you know that this past Friday is Simchat Torah? And so she enlightened me on the Kabbalist, or the mystical perspective, the Jewish mystical perspective on what this means. And this is what it means. It's a celebration of the greatest gift bestowed on us by the one source, the one presence, the one power, God. And it is the free will to create. The free will to create. Isn't that awesome? And so what happens then is that the Jewish people, in this case the Kabbalists, are invited to embrace the spiritual path, the spiritual teachings of Moses, which are prosperity teachings, as a way to, it's a celebration of that, embracing that into their lives and all that involves. And then they do dances. They do the circle dances. Hava Nagila, some of you may know that one. And some of the others, they do their circle dances to activate the inner light. Isn't that beautiful? To activate the inner light. And we just had this photo. Thank you, Dan. we also had, it was just another example of the burning bush. These beautiful stories that are out of the Bible and other ancient texts are written by people who are mystics, who are giving us a deeper story about our own spiritual journey. And I want to keep bringing us back to that. So that light, that bush that's on fire, is symbolic of the inner light. And the voice that came out of it, symbolic of the voice of the divine, our own intuition, our own inner guidance. So again, as we begin to look at these deeper meanings, we can apply it to our lives here and now. And isn't that the point anyway? Is for us to be able to bring these teachings into our own lives and to be a greater beneficial presence in the world. So we have free will. And when I offer these teachings, what I offer is that, or what I understand and I want to convey to all of you is that each of you are free will beings. Each of you have your own inner guidance system. your own divine inner voice that lets you know whether something works for you or doesn't. So as you're listening to what I'm sharing, I invite you to please choose what your inner guidance tells you to do. And when you're listening today, I'm inviting you to listen for the nuggets of wisdom that support you on your spiritual path. The nuggets of wisdom that support you. So, Catherine Ponder, how many of you know who Catherine Ponder is? She's a New Thought minister who has for many, many years delved deeply into a lot of these teachings, and in particular, I'm referring to her book called The Millionaire Moses, looking for the deep metaphysical teachings or mystical teachings that underlie these stories that are in the Bible in particular. And she and a lot of other giants, let's say spiritual giants, spiritual masters, have been teaching these for millennia. So even though she's offering it to us in our everyday language, it's something that has been taught by mystics. It's important to realize this for thousands and thousands of years. But it's being served up for us in our language, in our particular culture, so that we're able to more fully embrace how this thing that we call life works, and how to establish ourselves in abundance so that we can give our gifts without the worry of where is the next dollar going to come from? Where, how am I going to take care of myself and my family? So the beauty of this, when we look at it this way, these principles of prosperity, these principles of success, they're to support us so that we can be all that we can be, so that we can, what's been called by Maslow, so we can live in that place of self-actualization and to be that beneficial presence that we choose to be in the world. So now we come to the topic today. And it's an interesting name for the topic, considering what's going on in the world in this day and age. It's called Your Secret Weapons for Prosperity. And it's one of the chapters in her book. And I had to say that I had to kind of stop and say, is this really what I want to, do I want to use this terminology? And I decided to go ahead with it. And I'll tell you why. Because on a planetary scale, we are witnessing the jockeying for power using weapons of mass destruction as the threat. We know this is happening. We know this is something that could end life the way that it is now. And I don't know about all of you, but I ask myself often, what is my part in this? What is it that I am to bring to heal this consciousness, this warring type consciousness that still lingers in humanity? And I continue to be drawn back to these teachings, which are to cultivate my own inner world of peace, to stop my own inner battles, the battles between my vision and the old patterns that aren't serving me. And I invite you to join me in that as well. Because as we take responsibility for what goes on in our own inner landscape, then we are doing our part. We're helping to raise consciousness. And also, when we listen to our guidance, we will know what is ours to do as well. What is ours to do? What are the particular gifts that we offer on the planet to bring peace to the planet? So the path then I am going to be saying today, my perspective, the path to planetary peace then begins within. And it's a path of prosperity consciousness, abundance consciousness, which is another way of saying connection to the oneness of all that is, acknowledging it and bringing it forth. A world that works for everyone is my perspective. So let's get back to the story of Moses and the Israelites. And I invite you, if you haven't, I invite you to listen to my other messages too. They're free online. You can listen to the ones that lead up to this, and because I don't want to go and review the whole thing over again, so I'm inviting you to do that. So after overcoming many obstacles then, Moses and the Israelites, okay, let's think about the obstacles. What did they overcome? First of all, they had to get out of Egypt. And we know the story. There was a lot that went on into all of that happening. So they're finally released, and then they're chased after by the Egyptian soldiers and the army, and then we know the Red Sea divides, and they get through to the other side, and then they're in the wilderness, and then, oh my gosh, how do we feed 2 million people, and how do we find water for 2 million people in the desert? And so all of that is solved. And remember, the people who wrote these stories, the Hebrews, one of the things I learned when I took an Aramaic class from Rocco Errico a couple summers ago, I guess it was summer after last, I learned that these stories were told with exaggeration. They were not interested in facts. They were told with exaggeration, with symbolism, and a lot of other tools to help teach spiritual principles to the people who would listen to the stories. So our Western mind wants to know the facts, and we get caught up in wanting to know the facts. And if things sound like they're just way out there, we're like, oh, I'm not going to listen to that. It's just way out there. So the truth is, though, these teachings, when we understand it from the minds that created it, they were teaching stories to catch our attention and to learn some really important principles to lead really wonderful lives that we love, and to be, as I said before, give our gifts, to be able to give our gifts into the world. So anyway, here we go. It's like one problem after the other, one obstacle after the other. Anybody ever feel like your life is like that? One obstacle after another. Oh no, I just got taken care of this one. Well, the next obstacle that comes for the Hebrews is there are these warlike plunderers called the Amaleks, a desert tribe, who are now pursuing them. And so again, if we look at what does that mean for us in consciousness, it's what I was talking about earlier, those inner battles. When we set our vision for what it is that we want, and we hear all that self-talk that's saying, you'll never amount to much, you're not enough, blah, 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 all that stuff that gets in the way, that's the inner battle that goes on. The Amaleks, your own personal Amaleks. And actually, there's two kinds of Amaleks that Catherine Ponder pointed out, which I think are so powerful. They're the Amaleks, or the things that happen, the chaotic things that happen in our lives that are from our negative thinking. If we have a pattern of negative thinking, our outer world corresponds to our inner world. Things start happening. However, if we begin to start on this spiritual path, we start using our affirmations, we start using our spiritual mind treatment, we meditate every day, we're purifying and cleansing our consciousness. This is the other kind of Amalek that comes up. When things look like they're breaking apart and falling apart in our world, there's a term for it that was coined by Emma Curtis Hopkins, one of the founders of New Thought, some time ago. Brilliant, brilliant mystic. She called it chemicalization. So think about a car battery when you pour a baking soda solution on it that's corroded, and what does it do? It fizzes and bubbles, and all the stuff that's unwanted, all that corrosion comes off. Well, that's what happens. You can think of your prayers as the baking soda solution. And so it's helping to free your entire being of everything that doesn't serve. And so there can be some symptoms that come up, and many of you have experienced that in your body, maybe. I mean, I certainly have. And as the purification starts taking place, And also, old structures can fall apart that aren't serving. And it can look like things are falling apart. But remember, there is this principle called the breakdown before the breakthrough. And as we resist it and fight it, it lasts longer. And those are some of the things that the Israelites learned when they were in the desert. They learned that the more that they stayed in their negativity, the more they resisted what was and fought it, except one of the Amaleks, that what happened was they spent longer and longer and longer and longer out of the promised land. They stayed stuck in the wilderness. So the way we move out of our wilderness experience is to call it what it is. This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me. And I demand to see the blessing in it. That's Emma Curtis Hopkins. It's one of my favorite things. When I face a challenge, this too is good. Say this with me. This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me. And I demand to see a blessing in it. Okay? So one of the things that you'll be doing, and you have them on your chairs, is today is exactly 40 days from Thanksgiving. I'm going to invite you to start looking for the good. That's what being grateful is. You're looking for the good in your challenges and in the good things that are happening in your life. And as you write them down, as you write your gratitudes, that's 10 per day between now and Thanksgiving, 40 days. Remember, 40 is the number of, it's a numerology thing. It's the number represents the time it takes for transformation. So for 40 days, writing 10 things down every day. How many are in with me? I've been doing this anyway. I've been doing it every night anyway. So for me, it's just continuing on. And I'm going to use actually this journal as well so that I'm doing it along with you. But we know that when we focus on the good, that we receive more good. Exactly. If we complain, we receive more what? More things to complain about. So let's, as a community, do this together, and let's witness what happens in our lives. And remember, as things bubble up and fall away, bless them and send it on its way, and know that more good is coming. So that's the whole perspective on that. So that's two different ways of looking at the Amaleks. So that's the so-called first secret weapon, which I'm going to call principles. The first secret principles for peace and prosperity. The second one has to do with affirming and, oh, you know what? I want to just say a summary about that first secret weapon. It's stop talking about your problems and instead embrace the chemicalization as a natural part of the spiritual path. Okay, the second secret weapon is to choose to affirm that which you choose to be as already happening now and get support. So the story that backs this up is that when Moses learned that the Amaleks were coming, he sent Joshua and the army down, and he stood on the top of a hill and he raised his arms up. And his arms and his rod, as long as his arms were up, they won. They were winning. Okay, so he had to hold his arms up a long time, and they started getting tired. So then he called upon Aaron, his brother, and her. I forget what his relationship is, but anyway, if you look at the meanings of those particular names, Aaron stands for strength, and her stands for the word affirmation. Think about it. So as long as he remained affirmative and strong, you think about your own consciousness. As long as we remain firm and strong with our affirmations, things continue to move forward. But when we get tired and we start allowing the negative thoughts to take over, it feels like we're losing, So I mean, again, I love these stories, how there's a teaching component to them. So who is it that we can turn to when we get tired or we need a little additional support, or maybe we just need a partner to support us in knowing our truth? We have practitioners here to support you. We have and ministers, and we have spiritual community to remind us of who we are. That's our job, as spiritual community, is to know the truth about each other. That's the highest form of love that we can offer each other. Did you know that? Unconditional love, seeing someone's spiritual truth, looking right through the appearance and seeing their essence. That's what our practitioners do. And they claim it and they know it to be true. And it's very powerful, very healing. Emily Cuddy, who is a social psychologist, taught us, and we use it here, the language of power, of the power of creation, which is arms up and out, shoulders back, and speak our truth with power. Think about how that is exactly what we well, that's good. How that's exactly what we saw with Moses, arms up, declaring the truth. All right, so that's the second secret weapon, is affirm and use strength and accept support. Allow yourself to be supported. Okay, the third secret weapon or principle, listen to your inner guidance. So early in the wilderness experience, when there was a seeming lack of water in the desert, Moses went within and he listened to the voice of Jehovah, which, by the way, means the God within. Listen to the voice of Jehovah, the God within, and he was told to use his rod and tap on a rock and water would spring forth. So that was an outer type of thing that he did. Well, years later, when they were without water again, he went within again and asked for specific directions on how to provide water for all of his people, their cattle, all of the animals that they had. And he was told something a little different. Listen to this. He said, "Take the rod, gather the assembly together, you and Aaron, your brother, and speak over the rock before their eyes." He said, "Speak over the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth water." So what did he do instead? He used his rod and tapped on the rock. How often do we do that? Do the same, something we did in the past that maybe we're not receiving the guidance for in the present? And so this is what happened, is yes, he got water right away, but there were long-term consequences. They didn't get out of the wilderness. They stayed there. They didn't get to their land of milk and honey. So it's just a reminder, again, it's a teaching story, a reminder that when we don't listen to our guidance, we don't get the kinds of results that we'd like, our own land of milk and honey, that will evade us. So here was some guidance that I received about this particular message. There's a whole chapter in Catherine Ponder's book, The Millionaire Moses, that's all on the 10 Commandments. And I was not going to cover them, but then I read through it the other day and I thought, I've got to cover these. This is really cool, this metaphysical approach to the 10 Commandments. So I'm going to start it off with this little story. There was a club woman who was talking to a rabbi and said, "My relative was one of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence." To which the rabbi replied very coolly, "And my relative signed the 10 Commandments." So here's the thing about the 10 Commandments that's really interesting. They were principles that Moses gave to the people to help them stay focused on right living, right thinking, that would lead to them being prosperous people, living good lives, having good relationships with the divine and good relationships with one another. So the first four are all about how to have a good relationship with the divine, the indwelling and the universal, which is, by the way, Ernest Holmes says the innermost God and the outermost God is one God. So it's how to have that good relationship, that healthy, good relationship, connection. And the last six then are how to have a good relationship with your fellow humans. Cool, huh? So I'm just going to do the first four today because it's, I really want to kind of hone in on these a little bit. I think they're really powerful. So think of the first one. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. What's a way that we could put that into our language? How about this? Turn within for guidance and supply to the source within, right? No other gods. And that means, what are the kind of gods that we have before ourselves other than turning within? What are some of the things that we do? Oh, I'll be happy as soon as I have that relationship. I'll be happy as soon as I lose weight. I'll be happy as soon as I have all that money that I want. I'll be happy as soon as you fill in the blank. That's how we make those things our gods, instead of realizing that everything we need is within ourselves, and we can create the life that we choose when we remember where our source is. It's not something out there. So that's the first one. Turn within for guidance and abundant supply. It's in our everyday language. How about the next one? Thou shalt have no graven images. So how could we look at that one? How about this? Refuse to imagine lack and limitation. Those are the graven images that we have, right? Refuse to image things in our consciousness that don't serve us. And so what do we do? Because I sometimes have images that come up that I don't want to manifest in my life. Well, Catherine Ponder says it's very simple. You use the word no. You say to your mind, no, 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 as long as you need to just clear it out. Some of the other methods that are very powerful, there's one we use in our foundations class. We use clapping. Do you know you can clap in your etheric field, your thought field, and break up a thought pattern? Try that right now. Right. And actually you can say doubt out, faith in its place. Anybody remember that from Foundations? That's another way of saying no, 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 no. I don't want that thought in my mind. I want to replace it. So refuse to image financial lack or limited living or failure of any kind. No, no, no. Clap, clap, clap. Whatever works. Catherine Ponder says that many illnesses have been cured by using the power of no. Using the power of no. So what do we want to do? We don't want to just leave it there. We want to replace it with images of what we do want. And if it's hard to create those images in your mind, that's where vision boards and journaling and things like that come in really handy to give you a new image. Famous athletes use imagery all the time to help them break records that they've had before. I mean, that's how those world records, those things that seem like people are at their very edge, continue to be broken. It's imagery. It's using the power of imagery. Okay, the third one, taking the name, thou shalt not take the Lord God's name in vain. So this is about refusing to speak words of lack, limitation, failure, poverty, unhappiness, and disease. Because when we do that, I mean, that could be our modern way of looking at this idea of taking God's name in vain, because the presence of the divine is what? Whole, perfect, complete, abundant, good and very good. So when we say the opposite, you could say we're taking the Lord's name in vain. We're creating what we don't want. So she gave the example of a bellboy out in Hollywood who became a famous playwright by saying, I am a successful playwright. I am, I am, I am. I am a successful playwright. I am, I am, I am. That's using the power of I am too, by the way. So refuse to speak words of failure, or another way of looking at it, speak words of what it is that you choose to be. The final one, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. The Sabbath day. What's a way that we could look at that? The Sabbath day was set aside so that people would stop their work and rest. And rest. And why was rest so important? Because it was a way of showing trust, practicing trust that everything was unfolding exactly as it was supposed to be. It's a way of letting go and letting God, demonstrating that in our lives. So it's ceasing effort. How many of you sometimes feel like you are just efforting? You're just trying and trying and trying to get these things to happen in your life to the point where sometimes you exhaust yourself. Well, this principle is telling us to let go. You know, when we plant a seed, what happens if we keep pulling it up to look at the roots to see how it's doing? Doesn't work. So it's the same thing with our seed thoughts, our visions, is that it's important for us to let them grow, and to put our trust, to relax and put our trust in the unfoldment of this universal law that knows exactly how to bring it into fruition. And here's a beautiful affirmation. I have done all I know to do in inner and outer ways to create the new. I let go and let God. I now rest and relax. The finished results come forth quickly and in peace. I give thanks for whatever it is that you're wanting to create, for appearing in my life now. Isn't that beautiful? Let's do that. Think of something that you're choosing to manifest in your life that maybe has been evading you. And then repeat. Everybody got something? Okay, now repeat after me. I have done all I know to do.
I have done all I know to do.
In inner and outer ways. To create the new. I let go and let God. I now relax and rest. The finished results come forth quickly. And in peace. I give thanks for, think of what it is, appearing in my life now. Awesome. So that's it. So again, when facing Amaleks, things that look like challenges or chaos in our life, whether from negativity or from chemicalization, we stop talking about our problems. We affirm and do our affirmative prayer that we call spiritual mind treatment. Chemicalization, it's important to realize that's a natural part of life and you claim it as good. This too is God. This too is for me. Use your inner strength by affirming your good and ask for the strength and affirmation from others, our spiritual community, our practitioners. Follow your current inner guidance rather than how you always have done things, because your current guidance is your ticket to the land of milk and honey. Apply spiritual principles of prosperity, peace, and successful living found in the 10 Commandments. So here we go. I'm just going to the first 4 are about our relationship with the divine, indwelling and universal. Turn within to God as source of guidance and abundance. Imagine only success, speak only success, let go and trust. How about that? And so it is.